All right, go for it.
All right, welcome to try number two, attempt two of the PPBDL YouTube channel. With me on this kind of, I don't want to say emergency, but a much needed video is the commish of the league, Josh. Thank you for joining me. He's a grateful, wondrous commissioner because this is the second time we're trying to record this. So thank you for joining me again.
No problem. No problem. Happy to be here again, Eddie. And I do see in my upper right corner here, the record symbol is on, so it should be working this time.
Yep. So the some good news is coming out of baseball right now, or at least the Twitter is a flock with good reports. So hopefully we see some baseball shortly. But the main reason I had originally wanted you on was because we didn't think, a couple days ago, we didn't think there might be a season. There still might not be a season, but it's leaning in favor of, I think the proposal was 60 games, but it'll probably get countered to 65 or 66 to make the scheduling a little better. So let's just get right into it and hear from the commissioner's mouth what his thoughts are for the regular season. I know it's going to be a challenge, and we're going to have to just kind of work with what we get. So what do you got, Josh?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to remember that unfortunately our season is pretty much solely going to be based off of what MLB does. Again, based off of the proposal that we kind of got leaked or some info today, they're talking about 60 games. 60 games would put us at about, I think it was 60 games in 80 days, 65 and 80 days, somewhere around that. So basically, we're looking at about 11 weeks of MLB baseball. So if we keep our same playoff structure for fantasy of a 3-week playoff, that means take 3 away from the 11. We're at an 8-game or 8-week regular season. 8 games is just not flat out just not enough to have a representative, I think, representative baseball regular season. So what I think and what you had suggested would be the best thing to do is to possibly look at multiple matchups per week, to at least two games per week. So how that works, Fantrax does have the ability since we have a premium league, we can customize it that way to have me playing one division opponent and then play you in the same exact week, Eddie, or any 2 teams essentially that we schedule. What that allows us to do is if we keep, again, an 8-week regular season, we're essentially doubling the amount of games that we're playing to 16. I think 16, everyone would agree, is a lot better and more representative than 8. So some of the drawbacks is that you can't match up completely for one team or one matchup. Of course, I can't throw all my speedsters in when I'm going to lose power in my other matchup. But again, it will reward obviously the well-rounded teams. We'll kind of just have to see how it works out. Again, we're kind of at MLB's disposal, unfortunately, for how our season's going to go. But I think that's the best solution to get at least somewhat close to a full regular season.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to have many arguments if we're always matching up against someone in our division for that playoff spot. I think, when if it does come down to some strategery where, hey, I might lose this matchup if I don't have, the saves or a hold. Well, I really probably should focus on the divisional opponent. That way I can at least
True.
try and lock that up. And then, I think that also allows the competition to remain in the hunt. If a team gets off to a slow start or, shits the bed right away and they're 0-2, what are the odds? Like, why would I want to keep going, or 0-4, after week 2?
Yeah.
All right, maybe I start looking at the amateur draft. So, yeah, I think the multiple matchups a week, while might be a little bit confusing, is the right way to go. So it's not, an 8-week or an 8-game regular season. Let's shift
Definitely.
to the playoffs. If you had any thoughts or maybe any proposal for changes for the playoffs.
Yeah, as of now, nothing on the mind, nothing pressing to change as far as changing the format. Again, as in previous seasons, we've cut short that last week of the MLB regular season and not have our championship week be that week because of the kind of lack of interest or lack of competition in MLB. I don't think that'll be the case this year. I think with the shorter regular season, you'll have more teams that are in it or close in that last week of the regular MLB regular season, which would mean that we can use that 11th week as our fantasy championship. However, the proposal that we've seen has called for maybe expanded playoffs. And so if MLB decides to expand their playoffs, maybe 6 teams, I think that's something we could do as well. Have the weakest or the third division winner face off with the 6th playoff team, the 3rd wild card team. Then of course have the 2, 4, and 5 wild card teams face off as well, with the number 1 and number 2 seeds getting a bye, just like football essentially. And we could still keep our 3-week or 3-game, 3-week playoffs in that scenario. So that's probably what we'll end up doing if MLB goes to an expanded playoff as well.
Yeah, and I like that. And we had kind of talked about, 1, it keeps people in the hunt and wanting to contend. And 2, it would suck with this shortened season if we had a whole week in there where like it was 1 matchup and 10 dudes just kind of like standing by. So even if we get 1 extra game out of it, I'm all in favor of maybe expanding the playoffs just for this year. And hopefully, everything works out well where they start the season and it doesn't stop halfway through because of, an outbreak or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I know a couple of the podcasts that I've been listening to as they start to try and prepare for whatever this kind of season is, where a couple questions were floated out. Do you change the scoring system or something like that? And I know our league is built around specific scoring and categories. So I don't think a roto we had discussed is probably the fairest way, but the way our teams are built, these guys have been building specifically for years. So
yeah, exactly. I think Roto covers kind of a good representation of all categories, obviously. And so if you're strong or above average, at least in all of them, you'll have a good shot of winning. But again, that's not how we've all built our teams. I have personally tried to punt saves the last 2 seasons. I know Beast has tried to punt saves the whole time essentially. So some of us don't. Exactly. Some of us don't care about steals, so rewarding the, again, kind of across the board or all around well-balanced teams is fine. But when it discourages success or prohibits success from another team because they built their roster a different way, that's not what we're looking to do. So while Roto might be the most fair way to handle it, I think if we can get a good 16-ish games in, depending on the season, I still think we'll end up with a good representation of playoff teams and the better teams in the league making the playoffs by doing head-to-head. So yeah, I'd prefer to stay away from Roto. We use it for our tiebreaker still, which is fine. I think we ended up not having a whole lot of ties last year to break. So I think when we need to, it works. But I would rather not go to it as our primary scoring system.
Yeah, and the last thing I really had for the regular season, and maybe it bleeds into next season, are your thoughts on contracts. What do we do with contracts? I think we're all on an even playing field with the season, however it shakes out. So where's your head at with the contracts?
Yeah, you said it absolutely. At least with the kind of crappiness of this season of what we're going to be handling, it's we're all on the same playing field. At least, we are going to have to deal with the same rules, the same changes, the same settings, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think if we get a good season in this year, and again, by good, I mean, hopefully somewhere just spitballing around 16 games or so, that's close enough to a full season to justify moving our contracts, progressing our contracts 1 year, as if it was normal. So we had talked on our first try of the video of, what do we do how would it affect things if we didn't move the contracts forward a year? And I gave the example of, I have Yelich and I have Freddie Freeman on extensions this year, and I would essentially get them for 3 seasons. And what if I were to win the championship this year, or get second, get third, what have you, based on their success, and then yet still get them for 2 more seasons. That's an unfair advantage that I've taken or used, and I don't think that's fair. So again, we are all under these same rules, and so none of us can really have an issue or complain about fairness if we're all subjected to the same thing. And so I think it'd probably be most fair with a full season, or with a close to a full season, to move them forward a year.
Yeah, and that just sparked something when you think about, all right, we got to start talking about like arbitration or contract extensions. Well, everyone's, once again, they're still on the same playing field, so they're going to still
Mhm.
show up ranked, 1 through 10 or whatever for the salary if we're going to, do the averages. So I still
Sure.
think it should shape out. We're going to see some crazy stat lines though, because you see some of these first half, second half splits, and
Yeah.
some dude might go off for 30 homers and just like help seal the championship.
The extension, yeah, the ranking, the player rater, and the rankings of players, that's going to be something we're definitely going to have to see what it looks like at the end of the season, when it comes to then establishing the extension salaries and whatnot. Because yeah, you might have a $1 player that just has the career season in his the short 60 games, and is ranked number 2, 3, 4 from left field, and changes everything when it comes to salary, the salary scales and whatnot. So it'll be, but again, we're all subject to these rules, all of us. It's not just half the league that has to deal with it, or two managers have to deal with it. We're all subject to it. So I mean, as long as we can make it as fair and equitable, everybody's got to be subject to it.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have positive dialogue with everyone in the text, and I'm sure we'll all vote on, hopefully, the 2 matchups, 16 playoffs, or some version of that where we're getting multiple uh, results each week instead
Yeah.
of just one. So the main reason I originally had asked you to come on was because I was fearful that, one, there's not going to be a season, maybe there still won't be, but we haven't really had the discussion. We've joked about it a couple times. What do we do with the amateur draft next year if there is no season, and we have to try and figure out or propose some new options? So I had sent a
Mhm.
proposal, and I'll try and explain it as best I can, but it's essentially you move all of the draft picks a year to the right, so we don't have to deal with people kind of getting screwed where me and you have hoarded first round draft picks. So we don't lose that. What we would have to do is I don't know who threw out the idea of maybe we do a 3-year average, and
Mhm.
then kind of just seed off of that. Well, the only issue I have with that is it becomes more of a compensation type draft. So my thought process was maybe we do almost an auction where you take whoever the 12th place team is, and he gets, I think the example was $31, and you just go from there, 31, 30, 29, and all the way down to the best team gets only $20. And we essentially just auction off each draft pick. So
Yeah.
while the lower ranked teams the last couple of seasons will have the higher salaries to bid on, Torkelson, if he goes 1-1, maybe that bid is $28, $27 instead of the max of 10.
Yeah. No, it's a good. I think it's a viable system, a viable method to tackle the 2021 amateur draft. It equates. It's very similar, and I mentioned this in the previous video that we tried. It's very similar to international bonus or international pool spending. You have a certain allotment to spend on your international amateurs, and you can go after the high price of Jason Dominguez's, and or you can try to get a more across the board average with your draft picks. So I think it's a viable strategy. And I said this before, and I'll say it again for full transparency. The only reason I don't like moving the draft picks forward is because, yeah, I do have a couple first rounders this year, and I have not been shy with wanting to get Torkelson and move up, and so that would kind of prohibit my um, prohibit my ability to do that. With, obviously, I've had some success, and I will be in the lower budget of this strategy. If that's what we go with, it'd be harder for me to get that top 1 pick, because I fully expect him to go 1-1, 1-2 at the latest. So again, full transparency, that's my only drawback for it, is because it doesn't allow me to get Torkelson. But it's a good. I think it takes into account as much as we can with rewarding the lesser performing teams like a regular draft does. They get higher picks. This is what the 3-year average would do. It still allows the higher performing teams to try to jump up and maybe spend all their money on pick 1-4 or 1-5 or something like that, and get a good guy, get a high draft pick. And if you want to play it on the averages, like I said, you can get one each round, and get a mid pick, or even mid to late, mid or early and late, just how you base it out. So it's a good strategy. Again, we're all hoping that we don't have to use something like this, and we can get a season in and base the draft, the 2021 draft, on the actual standings. But if not, and we have nothing this year, this is what we can definitely start with a base to look at. I do want to say really quickly that 3-year rolling average of winning percentage, and you had kind of likened it to a competitive balance round or draft, if you will. I've been tooting that horn for the last couple off seasons, trying to get a comp round in, and so that's definitely something that I'd love to still put into our amateur draft. I know we talked about having what if we had a comp round, at the end, and what if we do this just because we like it so much? And exactly, we like the amateur draft. I think most of us really, really enjoyed it. It's our favorite part of the league. And so I'd love to revisit that again next off season, and trying to get a comp round in after round 1 or after round 3, however we figure it out, based off of winning percentages. So, but we'll talk about that. That's another day. That's another podcast.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't even have to try and think of how we're going to go about this. We get an actual season, so we have some standings to go off of. And
absolutely.
And yeah, I think whoever gets the 1-1, they're going to get some insane offers from half of our league trying to get the third baseman, Torkelson. So
yeah, I didn't know or realize he had third base eligibility. So he'll lose that real quick, but still, it for the his first season or whatnot, it makes him even that much more appealing. And before we kind of move on to the last part here, Eddie, I want to say as well, of course, not that it needs to be said, I think you all understand this, but any changes we make or anything we implement this season is, of course, going to be voted on by all of us. I'm probably going to institute the same, 2/3 or 8 out of 12 votes for anything to pass. I want to make this as consensus as possible, across the board as possible, not trying to make one decision that affects everybody that not everybody is on board with. So yeah, of course we're going to vote on everything, with everybody in the league.
Yeah, the amateur draft, just how the amount of trading we've done, though, it's going to be an interesting vote. And yes, we'll go with whatever the consensus is.
Sure.
So I don't have anything else for at least this season, regular season or playoffs. Here's to it actually happening. So at this point, we're going to change over to our season 2 of MLB The Show recap, where what was the number? 6 or 7 guys from the league?
Yeah, half the league. Yeah, 6 of us in PPBDL are in the show league as well, and we're up to 9 guys participating in that, and that'll be in season 2 and season 3. So it's going well. It's been fun so far.
Yeah, I'm not going to throw out any digs about Jared complaining. I will say I enjoy his double tap messages from the Fantasy Baseball League text message thread to the MLB The Show text message thread. He's actively trying to roll the text threads along at this point in the dead season.
He is trying, that's for sure.
All right, so season 2, I actually don't have the draft order layout now, but we can talk about the first couple picks, because it was Jared ended up with the Mets at 1-1, and then the Rays went at 1-2, which were 2 of the 3 top teams, and then I think D-backs was third?
Yeah, it went Mets, Rays, D-backs, Indians, Cardinals, and I think Irby went Cubs, Padres. You finished it off with you had A's, and then Angels finished it off. So Rays were going to be my pick if they fell down to me. I went with Cardinals at number 5. I was going to take the Rays, definitely. Indians, with their pitching was definitely appealing as well. I didn't really think of the Mets, just because I don't personally think highly of the lineup, but they are solid in the game. And so, it was a good pick by Jared to take them, especially with DeGrom and Syndergaard. The Padres were my other pick that I was really looking at hard, just because Tatis and Pham are really good at the top of that lineup, and they have Chris Paddock as an ace. But yeah, I decided to go with Cardinals. I just felt like the lineup was a little longer. The pitching was a little deeper with Flaherty as a stud. He's ranked an 88 ranking on there, and Seamart, Wainwright, Michaelis. They're a little more depth there, so that's why I went with the Cardinals. But I'm not surprised. Yeah, it didn't work out for me though. You can toot the shirt all you want. I wasn't really surprised by any of the teams that were picked. I was more surprised by some of the teams that were left for our season 3 draft, which we can touch on at the end.
Yeah, I think I had the 8th pick, and it was between Padres and the A's. So it was kind of, I just went with the A's. You start cycling through some of these lineups and the power that they have. Like you saw some of the regular season results and the numbers out of them. I was pretty happy with that. But I texted, the White Sox lineup is pretty sick too.
Oh yeah.
Depends on, how you feel about pitching. If you're Irby, you can take a lineup that's just stacked, and you can take average pitchers and make it to the playoffs. So, yeah, the White Sox were the team that I was looking at, and then I let him go. Jared took him 1-1 in the season 3 draft. And then the new Josh Pack, he took the Angels, and we'll talk about him after we close up with the regular season. So shifting over this season, we did something pretty cool where we voted on MVP and Cy Young. So the MVP was a cheat code. Matt Olson essentially just contact swings to like a 550 batting average with 10 or 11.
I don't think I got him out once. Not once the entire 3 games that I played you. No.
It was I was making such a push to try and get Chris Davis to the MVP that the book was out on him early. Everyone was throwing stuff in the dirt, and I was just power swinging every single pitch. So Olsen kind of came out of nowhere for me. But the Cy Young was really, really interesting. And one of the drawbacks is I don't know why the show doesn't really average out the WHIP or the ERA as well as it should. But there were a lot of pitchers that had some really good ratios and then had the high Ks. So if you wanted to touch on the Cy Young run.
No, I tried to be as objective as possible when I came up with these candidates. I was looking at all the stats, and I came up with what I felt like was the best 5 pitchers. And I know there was all starters. There's some Petit. Yusmeiro Petit was one of my finalists. Honestly, I almost had him on there because I don't know that he even allowed a run the whole season. And he had, I think
6 wins,
12 Ks, 13 Ks in 10 innings and 5 or 6 wins. So he was close, but I kept it to starters because those are the guys that were pitching the most, guys that had, 25 innings or so. And there was a lot of the 5 that I came up with were all really close. Any of them could have won essentially. I'm disappointed that Flaherty didn't get enough votes from my Cardinals, and Lester took it with Irby. Just pitching the shit out of everybody. He's so clutch and so good. But yeah, Lester was very deserving, who ended up getting the Cy Young, and Irby was the only one with 2. He had him and Yu Darvish both as finalists out of the 5. So it was a tight race. It was fun to add the awards. You had mentioned before I don't think it added any sort of strategy to anybody. Not that I wasn't trying any harder with Flaherty than I was with any other pitcher, but just that kind of added to me, at least, knowing that Flaherty just pitched a gem. Cool, he's getting closer to maybe having the Cy Young. I know when I played Casey in the Padres, I think I scored 2 or 3 runs off of Paddock, and he was saying, "Well, there goes his Cy Young." He texted me, "There goes his Cy Young, his campaign." So yeah, it's just it's just an added element of intrigue to the season, which I thought was really cool that we did it.
Yeah, I think season 3, maybe not so much just because the teams aren't going to be as good, but I can totally see the text thread evolving game by game. Hey, so-and-so, we had a couple guys get close to shutouts or perfect games or no hitters. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that banter of, every after every game I would report, what happened with Chris Davis. So
yeah, definitely.
So we'll switch over to the playoffs because they're getting ready to start, and hopefully I can get Josh sometime soon. And then the other 2 were Padres Cubs, was it? Yeah, Cubs Padres.
Yeah, Cubs and Padres rematch of Casey and Eddie or Casey and David from season 1 playoffs. And yeah, I think they were saying that their series is probably going to start Thursday or Friday. They'll get their games in. And yeah, we'll get you and Pac playing your series and see how that goes, and hopefully have the World Series this weekend between whoever gets there. Yeah, two good matchups, 4 really good teams. I shared this. I'll share it again. Beast Derek and Beast is entering into season 3. And when I showed him the draft order and me picking number 2 overall, he asked if I had a really crappy season 2. And I said, you know what? It wasn't what I wanted it to be, but actually I finished only a couple games out of the playoffs. The competition for that third, but predominantly fourth spot was really close between 4 or 5 of us teams. So, if Carter or Ryan would have gotten into it and snuck in at the 4 seed or the 3 seed, I think both of them would have done really well also. I do fully and rightfully believe, Angels and Padres, Casey and Josh were fully deserving, and you got yourself a tough matchup on your hands in the first round with Josh.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition because of every team, probably outside of Irby, just because of his pitching, I did not want to face. It is the newest member of the league, Josh. He has, if not, yeah, I would say he's got the best eye, and that was something that I had messaged you about. Maybe we do some award votings like that for best pitching or best pitcher, and then best eye or something like that. But yeah, I think he's got the vote for that right now. All three.
It's unbelievable.
All
it's
three
unbelievable.
Of our games, all 3 of our games were really close, and I think once he realizes that a lot more guys are swinging out of the zone, he'll stop throwing pitches in the zone, and then he'll be hard. So not the ideal matchup, especially since my son just had his tonsils out, and I haven't played the game in 2 weeks at this point. So I'll have to get a game in before we play, but it'll be a tough matchup.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, his eye is just unbelievable at the plate. He just doesn't swing at anything out of the zone. And then he's great hitting. So when you throw it in the zone, he makes contact and usually goes a long way. And then in the other matchup, Irby and Casey facing off again. Like I said, they faced off in the semifinals of season 1 with Casey sweeping him and taking it with his Astros last season. So we'll see if Casey can do it again with the Padres, or if Irby just, gets his revenge with the Cubs this season and makes it to the finals. Or Irby's really good. So it's going to be a tough task for Casey to repeat again.
Yeah, that was a shocking result, at least of a sweep. I thought, maybe 1-1, 2-1 going into it, but I'll be following that one closely because I think both those guys have smoked me multiple times, and those are the closest matchups that I have. And then, Josh, Pack, freaking Trout, man. Like, I'm pretty sure every time he got up, at least 1 or 2 runners were on, and at least one of those guys was scoring, if not a grand slam. So it's a pretty nice 1 through 4, and then if he can get the pitching down, our series is going to be tough.
It was Jason Castro and Pujols that killed me. Yep. I think I handled Trout and Rendon surprisingly well, but I could not get Castro out, and Pujols won on a walk-off home run in one of our matches. So yeah, he handles that whole lineup really well.
There is nothing more frustrating than a 0-speed dude just blew one, into out of the shift, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And Pujols ending up on like second, or the computer doing something dumb and trying to get him to third.
Definitely.
So, yeah, we'll definitely probably have the season done by the end of this weekend, and then we can shift on to the season 3, which will probably it'll be interesting because I think it'll really level the playing field, because I'm going to be looking at in the bottom 4 picks. There's not a lot of goodness left over. Or there's definite holes that's somewhere in the pitching or the hitting side. So I think, is it Derek? He's got the 5th pick right now.
Yeah, well, he went with the Rangers. Derek took Rangers with 5. So off the board we had Jared, who's 3 for 3 with the first overall pick now. Jared took White Sox number 1. I went Phillies number 2. I believe it was Ryan after me who went Red Sox, who I had been championing saying that they were the clearly best team, but I could have had them, and I decided to go with Phillies, and we can touch on that in just a second. But Ryan went Red Sox. Carter then went Brewers, I believe, and then Derek coming in for his first season went with the Rangers. So I mean, on the board still, Blue Jays are probably one of the best ones to me left over. They got Ryu and a solid bullpen in Giles. Carter had mentioned it, but surprisingly, the Royals are not that bad. Well, for context wise, who we got left, so the Royals might be one of the teams picked.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we have Giants, Pirates, Marlins, Mariners, Tigers, Royals, Blue Jays, and then the Orioles.
Yeah, Pirates and Mariners are just, and Orioles and Tigers are just they're just so bad. Giants, same thing. I was looking through these lineups and I'm like, I'm glad I'm picking high for this draft because this is rough. So yeah, you guys will have it cut out for you playoff teams picking who's left.
Yeah, it'll definitely level the playing field here.
Definitely.
That's pretty much it. I don't know. You had just recently texted out about Twitch. I don't have an account. I guess, I mean, I don't stream or do anything like that, but I definitely am on Twitch watching people play.
Yeah.
That would be something that I would definitely follow along on. I know there's a way you can like kind of screen mirror or view other players' games on the PS4, but
yeah,
it doesn't work half the time, or the audio is all jacked up. So it would be great to see some of these games, especially like a Jared game, to watch all of the errors that.
Yeah, you could go back and rewatch, everything he's saying. Yeah, the screen share or the share play, whatever it's called from PlayStation, it's a bit wonky. We've tried it once with you, and I know Casey tried it once with me too, trying to get on and watch. It's hard to do because you also have to you have to go through like an approval process essentially from whoever's allowing it, like during the stream, during the game. So it's kind of like hard to like pause, allow, unpause, make sure you get it in a time. So yeah, I mean, I figured I'd give it a go. Why not? And I'll just, you'll be able to see my screen, hear my audio. If I have my headset hooked up, and add some more, something else to the league. Why not? And I'll throw out the Twitch channel or throw out the link, and whoever wants to watch, they can, and check out the games. And yeah, it'll be nice to, at least, for my games, when I play Jared, we'll see all the weird stuff that happens. I can't take into account any of his game. Maybe he needs to stream too, so we can see his games, every single one of them. But yeah, I know it'll be something fun. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, the best part of the Jared errors is when you go to like team stats at the end of the season, it only shows like one error or two errors. the
right.
Logic of the game doesn't represent it as an error, even though the outfielder just like watches it fall right in front of him. But Josh, I appreciate you coming back on again.
Yeah,
we're gonna have baseball this year, if it's fantasy or video game wise. Hopefully it comes fast. They said 19th, 20th of July. We should be hopefully getting some games if the Players Association accepts or counts, and they can get something done this week. Hopefully we're looking at baseball shortly.
Yeah, I've been itching to get back into our fantasy league again. It's gone radio silent for the most part. When we're used to having tens, hundreds, sometimes of text messages bouncing around every day. So yeah, I think we're all just ready for baseball, just in time for fantasy football to get started too. So, but it'll be good. It'll be good.
I couldn't tell you who some of my bench players are right now that I specifically drafted from the auction. So it'll definitely be interesting to see some of the moves and transactions that are going to come up, or the trading that'll happen. But
for sure,
I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some good news this week.
Definitely. No problem. Thanks for having me, Eddie.
All right. See you, man.
Bye.